Okay, I want to talk about, in the next couple of videos, some criticisms I have of Nietzsche, maybe an evaluation of Nietzsche, and then Nietzsche's influences. So I'm going to start with some criticisms of Nietzsche I have, and you can take or leave if you like, but it's interesting to assess him from the perspective I'm assessing him from, which is the Christian perspective. So as I look at Nietzsche, I have two, I would say, main criticisms. I have a lot of praise for Nietzsche, but two main criticisms. Number one, and I mentioned it in the video previously, that I think the concept of the Übermensch is an impossibility. Why? Well, for me personally, if I know I'm creating my own values and meaning, it ceases to become meaningful for me. That is, meaning seems to me to be constituted by objectivity. For example, I love my wife and I believe my wife is in love with me. If I realize that, and I find great value and meaning out in that relationship, but if I think that, my wife loves me because I, slipped her a love potion or something like this, like you would see in cartoons or in the movies or in the Twilight Zone, or that's not really real, then it loses its force. I mean, it's kind of like, a weird analogy to this is, have you ever liked a song by an artist and then didn't like it once you found out the artist didn't write the song, that it's just a cover or something like that? It kind of loses the gravitas or the value that the song would have. And I think the same with Nietzsche's idea of the Übermensch. If I'm merely positing values that I know are lies, that are fictions of my own creation, so I can tragically deal with life that I know is absurd, I don't think life ceases being absurd to me. I think either life is meaningful or it isn't. And if it isn't, I don't see how you can find meaning that isn't there, that is merely put meaning there. I think the idea of meaning itself and of value itself, for something to be meaningful, just for something to matter and to something to be cherished as valuable, it has to be real. It has to be meaningful. It has to be true in a certain sense. So my first critique of Nietzsche would be the concept of the Übermensch is an impossibility. I don't think our brains or our minds can deal with created purposes that aren't really purposes, that are simply conscious lies told to ourselves. So that's the first critique I would have. Second critique is more of a self-referential critique of Nietzsche, that is, that I've already hinted at through the various videos. That is, if everything is a lie because truth is contingent upon being, and being is that which stands still, and truth is simply the correspondence of what I say to reality, right? So if I say the bottle is on the table, it is the case that it is, it's true. And so truth and being go together, but remember, for Nietzsche, he wants to overcome, we could say, being with the idea of becoming, or just chaos. Because he thinks that reality, if you leave being to itself, you wind up in a reality where a supreme being must be able to explain the order or the intelligibility or the design of this world. So Nietzsche posits becoming over being, and in turn posits art over truth. And when you do that, I think you box yourself in a corner, because then everything Nietzsche says and all of his assessments aren't true. They're mere artistic lies, beautiful lies. They're nice portraits. Nietzsche seems to have been aware of this. He says it, I think, in his essay Beyond Good and Evil, section 22, where he says something like, he's talking about how everything is an interpretation in science and physics, and he says, no doubt you'll say this is an interpretation too, namely what Nietzsche is saying. He goes, well, so much the better. In other words, I think this is a problem, though. If someone really says there is no truth, then that means that statement isn't true. So if I say there is no truth, all truth is merely subjective, then that statement itself is merely subjective. Or even if I say something less strong, like all truth is contextual, well, then that means that truth is contextual. Namely, the idea that truth is contextual. Truth is contextual would be contextual, in which case it wouldn't always be true. Or it wouldn't always be universal. It wouldn't apply at all times. So if I say there's no universal truth, there's no truth that applies all the time, then that truth is, which is purporting to be a universal truth, isn't true universally. So the problem is, we're back to the liar's paradox. The idea that everything I say is a lie. Is that a lie? Well, yes, then everything you say isn't a lie. If that's a lie, or sorry, if that's not a lie, then everything you say isn't a lie. Okay, so this is the second, I think, metaphysical critique of Nietzsche, that to destroy truth is to destroy all predication, all language. I often do this on true or false exams, I'll ask students, true or false? There is no truth. And they'll go, well, according to who? The students will often email me and say, according to who? And I'll just say, no, just answer the question. Can you answer that question? And if you put true, there is no truth, you've just contradicted yourself. How could it be true that there is no truth? If there is no truth, then it can't be true because you just said there is no truth. So it has to be false. So I think I think Nietzsche provides what's known in logic as a reductio ad absurdum. You take the opposite position. In logic, when you're trying to make an argument, you take the position you're arguing against and show how it's absurd, and then you form a disjunction. You say A or B, not B because it's absurd, must be A, therefore. And I think Nietzsche does this. This is why I like him so much, because I think Nietzsche gives us a reductio ad absurdum for truth. Not only truth, but also, I think, Christianity.